We're a few days away from the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remake shadow dropping for Xbox, PC, and PlayStation. If rumors are to be believed. According to the many reports that have spoken about the remake, its existence, and what it will bring to the table, it's going to be at least a quasi-ambitious upgrade over the 2006 original, which of course means there's every chance that we get to see a number of improvements made to the gameplay, the under-the-hood tech, the visuals, and more that we simply wouldn't see in a simple remaster. In fact, the hope very much should be that this new take on Oblivion takes a look at the RPGs that Bethesda Game Studios went on to produce in the years since the original's release, and takes cues from them in terms of both what to do, and in some cases, what not to do.
I told you to come along!
Blood for the Empire!
Only the chosen will survive. I do not fear death.
Of course, there are some sort of changes that we probably shouldn't expect to see. Though it does look by all accounts like the Oblivion remake will make some notable changes and improvements, it's fair to say that at the end of the day, it's going to be a pretty faithful recreation of the original game, as close to a one-to-one remake as it could be given the changes that it is purportedly making. A Resident Evil 2 style reimagining, this is probably not going to be. We can, as such, probably do away with any notions of, say, the open world map being injected with greater environmental variety, or any of the story or dialogue being rewritten in any meaningful way, or any other significant changes along those lines.
You'll never take me!
On the other hand, smaller scale changes to the design might not be entirely unreasonable expectations. Rumor has it that developer Virtuos has remade Oblivion in Unreal Engine 5, and if that is indeed the case, one would expect, or hope if nothing else, would allow the remake to avoid at least some of the many noticeable limitations and restrictions that were placed on the original by the tech that it was built on at the time. For instance, in other recent features, we've touched on things such as the original map not being seamless and the dungeons being procedurally generated, both of which are issues that a remake could probably address, especially given the fact that it's purportedly being built on a new and different engine. Beyond that, it should also be exciting to see how the many cities, towns, and hubs of civilization scattered throughout Cyrodiil could be enhanced. Exploring the map's cities was one of the original game's highlights in 2006 as is, but with the all-new tech now available to the devs, might we be in for even more detailed and immersive renditions of these locations? After all, getting to explore large, varied, dense cities has always been one of the best parts of any Bethesda RPG, and that's only gotten more true with time. Admittedly, Starfield let quite a few people down in this department, but both Skyrim and Fallout 4 definitely did not, so it wouldn't be a surprise in the slightest to see a more modern Oblivion remake taking cues from the games that followed it and trying to improve its city locations in various ways. NPC AI, for instance, could see tweaks to improve their interactions with each other, their interactions with the player, their pathfinding, and more, all of which were issues that the supremely janky original game was undeniably dragged down by. Sure, even in their original form, the cities of Cyrodiil's maps are still a joy to explore and get lost in even today. But I'd love to see the remake deliver even better versions. Storytelling is another area where the Oblivion remake can make some smart changes to make for an improved experience. Again, I don't think we're going to get rewritten or re-recorded dialogue, or at least not at a scale that will change things in any significant way. I can, however, see the remake making other tweaks that have an effect nonetheless, especially when taken together. For example, the incredible goofy camera zoom that precedes every conversation with every NPC and character could be removed from the equation. That zoom has admittedly become strongly associated with Oblivion in its own way, but it doesn't do the game's already rough storytelling any favors, to put it mildly, so getting rid of it with the remake for a somewhat snappier experience would certainly be a welcome change. Future BGS titles haven't exactly gone on to be recognized as storytelling masterpieces by any means, but they have polished some far more welcome changes of the studio's earlier rough edges, many of which were quite prominent in The Elder Scrolls 4, so hopefully the alleged remake will follow suit. Even more welcome will be the changes that reports have claimed that the remake is making on the gameplay front. We can of course talk about the changes that the remake could make to improve the original game's super janky combat, and we have done that in past features. Other relatively smaller aspects of the experience could also do with upgrades. However, there's the UI and the menus, all of which were notoriously messy and not the most user-friendly in the original game. That's obviously something that Bethesda Games has continued to struggle with over the years. Even Starfield has that problem. But the studio has still learned from its mistakes over the years, with the likes of Skyrim and Fallout 4 polishing things up noticeably. Reports have suggested that the Oblivion remake is indeed going to make necessary changes to the UI as well. So here's hoping that things such as the inventory management, sorting, and what have you are less cumbersome than they were back in the day. Changes are also needed in the character advancement department, as many will tell you. The original Oblivion used a very straightforward form of level scaling, with enemies scaling up to your level in pretty aggressive fashion throughout the experience. That of course was a problem, because it was easy to feel like you weren't making any material advancement. Of course, future Bethesda RPGs have also continued to use level scaling, but they have, at the very least, couched in on some form or another, making it feel much less like a problem. Skyrim, for instance, scales up enemy levels to yours when you enter a new area, but then locks them to that range going forward. Fallout 4, meanwhile, populates its world with legendary enemies and formidable challenges to ensure that the difficulty curve feels like, well, a curve, not a static difficulty line. Oblivion's upcoming remake needs to follow these BGS titles' leads by fine-tuning its own character advancement mechanics. The original Elder Scrolls 4 obviously remains a great game even today, close to 2 decades on from its release, but it has also inarguably aged poorly in some ways, particularly because the games that Bethesda Game Studios put out in the years afterward improved upon it in some key ways. Virtuo's purported remake has the chance to look at many of those improvements and apply them to an absolute classic, in the process delivering an improved and definitive version of the game, in the best case scenario at least. Again, a lot of this will depend on how much Virtuos and Bethesda have been willing to change and fiddle with things with the Oblivion remake. But the hope is that they'll have made changes at least in the areas where they can reasonably be made. Hey, did you know that we at GamingBolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell, and let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.